You know someone clever, someone who can solve problems others can't see, who generates ideas the way others generate small talk. You admire them. But something about them unsettles you. Their solutions are brilliant but somehow only ever serve them. Their creativity flows toward their own advantage, like water finding the lowest point. This is the psychology of people, and today we're asking what happens when creativity operates without a moral compass. We celebrate creativity as an unqualified good. Schools cultivate it. Workplaces reward it. Culture admires it. We assume more creativity equals better outcomes. But new research reveals something that should make us pause. Among people low in wisdom, higher creativity actually predicted less willingness to help others. Not the same amount of willingness. Less. The creative ones were actually worse at helping when wisdom was missing from the equation. This isn't an argument against creativity. It's a deeper question about what creativity needs to become genuinely good. For decades, psychology has treated creativity as a cognitive ability, something to measure, train, and maximize. Think of divergent thinking tests, brainstorming sessions, design thinking workshops. The assumption has been straightforward. If we can generate more creative people, we'll generate more creative solutions to human problems, more innovation, more progress. Silicon Valley built an entire culture on this premise. Move fast and break things, disrupt, innovate, the creative mind as the engine of progress. But history offers cautionary tales. The financial engineers who created instruments so creative they crashed entire economies. The social media architects who designed features they knew were addictive. These weren't failures of creativity. They were triumphs of creativity applied without consideration for who might be harmed. Cleverness without character. A study published in the journal Intelligence set out to test whether wisdom might serve as a moral regulator for creative capacity. The researchers designed a two-part investigation. They measured participants' creativity through standard psychological assessments. Then they measured something called wise thinking, the capacity to balance analytical sharpness with moral consideration. Then participants faced moral scenario situations where they could choose to help a stranger at some cost to themselves. The question, would creative people be more or less willing to help? The researchers found that intelligence and creativity are, in their words, morally neutral. They can be used to help others. But they can also be used manipulatively or destructively. Here's the key finding. Among participants who scored low in wise thinking, higher creativity actually predicted a lower willingness to help the stranger. Not neutral, not the same, actively less helpful. For these individuals, the researchers wrote, a lack of wisdom seemed to allow their creative thinking to become self-serving. The creative mind, it turns out, doesn't automatically point toward doing good. It points wherever the person behind it aims. And without wisdom, the aim tends to curve inward. A second study with 801 participants confirmed these findings. This larger sample allowed researchers to examine a specific type of wisdom they called integrative wisdom. Integrative wisdom involves a balance of sharp thinking skills with moral virtues like fairness and benevolence. It's not just being smart about ethics. It's building ethics into how you think. The second study confirmed that integrative wisdom moderates how creativity affects prosocial behavior. Wisdom, it seems, acts as a kind of steering mechanism for cognitive horsepower. This finding has deeper roots than a single study. Philosophers have long suspected that cleverness without character poses dangers. Aristotle distinguished practical wisdom from mere cunning. Cunning, Aristotle argued, could achieve any goal, but practical wisdom knew which goals were worth pursuing. The difference wasn't in capability, it was in direction. Now psychological research is catching up to philosophical intuition. 30 years of wisdom research has established theoretical frameworks. But empirical evidence for wisdom as a moderator had been limited. As the researchers put it, many theories propose that wisdom functions as a moral regulator channeling cognitive strengths toward prosocial ends. This study provides the empirical confirmation. The practical implications are significant. The researchers wrote, developing creativity alone may not reliably promote prosocial outcomes. Wisdom-related capacities may be key. This challenges how we think about talent development. We built systems to identify and cultivate creative potential. We've been less systematic about cultivating wisdom alongside it. Think about how we identify promising students. We test for cognitive ability, creative potential, academic achievement. We don't typically assess moral reasoning or wise judgment. Consider how we hire in creative industries. We look at portfolios, problem-solving exercises, design challenges. We rarely ask, how do you think about who your work affects? This research suggests we might be systematically developing creative capacity while neglecting the moral framework that determines whether that capacity helps or harms. Some researchers question whether wisdom can be reliably measured or systematically taught. The construct itself is debated, but this study used validated scales drawn from 30 years of wisdom research. Critics might argue the study conflates wisdom with agreeableness or social desirability bias. But the researchers controlled for personality factors and found the wisdom effect held independently. There's also the question of cultural variation. Wisdom looks different across traditions. What counts as wise judgment in one context might not transfer to another. The study was conducted primarily with Western participants. Whether the creativity-wisdom relationship holds across cultures remains an open question for future research. But the core insight transcends these debates. Whether or not we can perfectly measure wisdom, we can recognize when it's missing. We've all met brilliant people who use their gifts primarily for themselves. And we've met people of ordinary cleverness, whose moral compass guides every decision toward collective good. The difference isn't in raw cognitive power, it's in orientation. Creativity is a powerful tool, but a tool is only as good as the hand that wields it and the purpose it serves. A hammer can build a shelter or break a window. So what does this mean for how we think about ourselves and others? First, recognize that creativity is a tool, not an inherent virtue. Its value depends entirely on how it's directed. When you evaluate ideas, your own or others, ask not just whether they're clever, but who benefits and who might be harmed. This simple question redirects creative energy toward wisdom. In education and hiring, consider whether wisdom-related traits are being cultivated alongside creative skills. Technical training without ethical reflection produces capable people who may not be good ones. You can cultivate what the researchers call integrative wisdom, balancing analytical sharpness with virtues like fairness and benevolence. This isn't mystical, it's trainable. Practice perspective-taking. Before finalizing creative decisions, imagine how they affect people unlike yourself, people with less power, different needs, fewer resources. When you catch yourself generating clever solutions, pause to ask, is this cleverness serving something beyond my own advantage? The pause itself builds the habit of wise reflection. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe. We explore questions like this every week. Understanding why we act the way we do is the first step toward acting better. The researchers pointed to education as a key application. Current approaches emphasize creative problem-solving without equal emphasis on considering who those solutions affect. Some educators are developing what they call holistic wisdom education approaches that develop transformational creativity rather than merely technical creativity. Transformational creativity doesn't just generate novel solutions, it generates solutions that transform situations for the better, that consider context, consequences, and the common good. This matters for workplaces too. Many organizations screen for creative potential without assessing whether candidates will apply that creativity toward shared goals or personal advancement. If you're involved in hiring, consider adding questions that reveal how candidates think about the impact of their work, not just what they can do, but how they decide what's worth doing. The research also has implications for how we think about genius and leadership. History is full of creative geniuses whose work benefited humanity and creative geniuses whose work caused harm. What distinguished them wasn't raw creative power, it was the moral framework guiding that power. Einstein advocated for peace. Oppenheimer built the bomb, then regretted it. This research suggests the difference isn't just historical accident. Wisdom genuinely moderates whether creative capacity produces outcomes that help or harm others. None of this means we should stop cultivating creativity. Creative capacity is genuinely valuable. The point is that it's not sufficient, it needs a companion. We need both the engine and the steering wheel. Creative capacity without wise direction is a powerful car with no one deciding where it goes or whose neighborhood it drives through. The study author suggests that wisdom-related capacities may be key to ensuring creative strengths translate into social good. Not optional. Key. So here's the question to sit with. We've been asking how to make people more creative. Maybe we should also ask how to make creative people wiser. It's a different question. It leads to different training programs, different hiring practices, different ways of evaluating who we trust with power. Maybe the most creative thing we can do is take wisdom seriously. Not as a soft skill, not as a nice to have, but as the compass that gives creativity its direction. Until next time, keep asking the questions that matter, not just how to do things cleverly, but how to do them well.